Now we are live. Welcome everyone to come to WarsawJS number 93 Meetup. And my name is Wenyao Lin. Nice to see you. And thank you for the wonderful team organizing this WarsawJS Meetup. Piotr Dziętara, Gabriela Chuha, and Maciej Machniewski. Thank you for organizing such wonderful meetup. And we have our tech team over here supporting us, Pavel Rechnio and Luisa Haas. And we have a great team of volunteers, Anna Lukianova, Konrad Dziekonski, Anastasia Hrynova, and Jacek Rojek. And I see some people are the first time here at WarsawJS. So what is WarsawJS? WarsawJS Meetup is a safe environment for you to share your knowledge and learn from each other. Doesn't matter if you are already a senior programmer or you want to learn programming. You can always learn something here and make friends. And we have in WarsawJS, we follow the Berlin Code of Conduct, which is we participate in an authentic and active way. We exercise consideration and respect. We do not accept demeaning, discriminatory, and harassing behavior or speech. Those that violates the rule of Berlin Code of Conduct will be removed by Dziętara himself. And we have now 5,977 members. Thank you all for joining WarsawJS Meetup. And today our sponsors are Tunnels, CallStack, Daft Code, Evolution, Fresha, Global, PackHelp, PostClick, Prisma, Sumo Logic, TDO, and Xfang. And thank you, Sumo Logic, for providing us this beautiful office. And I need to mention, shout out to Global of giving us discount during Meetup. So feel free to check out Global. And we will have 2 entries for Prisma conference. So later on, you will write your name and email on a piece of paper, and we will put in a hat. I'm guessing will be Dziętara's hat. And then we will be taking 2 papers from there. The people that are chosen will have entries for Prisma's conference. And our speakers for today are, first, Mateusz Chrzonstowski. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Good. And the topic would be my personal front-end overview in 2022. And our second speaker would be Łukasz Strączyński. Welcome. And he will be sharing his experience in building SEO-friendly URL structure. And our third speaker would be Robert Kawecki. Kawecki? Over there. He will be talking about sessions vs tokens, a how-to guide for implementing authentication state in your product. And now let's begin. Welcome our first speaker.
2 more minutes. I need to log in and open my slides.
factor, very secure. Tak, będzie. Screen. Give a hand to Mateusz!
Hello, today I will share my personal front-end overview as for 2022. Let's start with some disclaimer. As you all know, perspective matters. And here in the slide, in this picture, we have a third perspective. There is a comment which tells, I don't get it, he is equally bald-headed. So the perspective matters, and I'm telling about this because everything I'm going to through will be told from my personal perspective. Yeah, this is my personal front-end overview. So a couple of words about myself. My name is Mateusz. My surname is hard even for Polish people. Our lovely host was able to read it. So this is Chrzonstowski. Yeah. Here are the other social media you can find me in. And regarding GitHub, it's worth remembering this particular link. This is a link to this presentation. All slides are already online. I'm also showing them from the online, so hopefully network connection will work. So this is FE-overview, WarsawJS. I work at Glovo, and yeah, I think it's fourth time I'm presenting at WarsawJS, my third company, but it's actually good for the presentation because Glovo uses Vue. I previously worked with React and previously even with Angular. So I have some context on that as well. I also have some part-time activities, but let's skip them for now. So let's start with some facts in order to build the context for the opinions I can make later. So it's worth to start a talk about front-end, but starting with JavaScript itself. Like this is the crucial part in my eyes of the front-end ecosystem. Why? We will come back to this in a minute, but let's focus on this language itself, on this programming language. Yeah. So how to compare programming languages? How to compare their popularity or something? There is one thing like TIOBE programming index, and this is something which analyzes the search engines and how often people are looking for some programming languages. And this is the link to the original source, the methodology, you can read about this. But what is important for is the JavaScript is stable at the 7th place, somewhere here. So nothing fancy maybe, but it's stable, as I said. The top 3 it's now Python on top, but the second number is C. Previously it was always Java, now Java is third, and so on and so forth. But let's think a different way. When you look for something with Google or DuckDuckGo better, you probably type JavaScript, but what then? Probably then you are entering Stack Overflow, right? So let's focus not on TIOBE itself, but on Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is the best community for all the developers, as we know, and it has a survey each year, and in the latest results, JavaScript is the most popular programming language amongst responses. So there are over 80,000 responses. And JavaScript, in fact, for the 9th year in the 9 is top 1 programming language used on Stack Overflow by Stack Overflow users. So it's pretty important perspective. And then it's maybe even more important when looking further. So JavaScript, there is also the stat, like let's say fanboy to hater ratio. JavaScript is not perfect. Right? Don't like it when they work with it, but TypeScript is something which catches attention here. Catches the attention. And TypeScript, as we know, is a superset of JavaScript. It's also worth looking at this when it comes to front-end development. Then, it's also not only this fanboy to hater ratio, but there is also a tab telling you what are the programming languages you want to learn. Don't use, but want. So JavaScript is the third one, TypeScript is the second one, and Python is top one. So we see that JavaScript is very, very important. And this is even more important when you are a front-end developer and you hear that there are plenty of other techniques of communicating with machines that not only maybe so futuristic ones, but there are even smart speakers. Yeah, we use them on a daily basis. There is a comeback of, let's say, textual way, or console-like input with all the chats we have. We have chatbots for WhatsApp, for Messenger, but we also have Slack with some comments. You can go with /something, and it executes your code behind the scenes. It's like a textual interface, text interface, which is able to run some backend logic. So now, looking from this perspective, as a front-end developer, you may feel frightened, but don't worry, there is a still bright future for you. Front-end is used everywhere. Now you can also have mobile-like applications with progressive web apps or trusted web apps. There is a huge thing called WebAssembly, which helped, for instance, with the AutoCAD program, which is rather heavy desktop app. It used to be only desktop app, but out of nowhere, they decided to put it into the browser. And they had some problems with doing this. And they discovered this WebAssembly. So they compiled all the C code to WebAssembly. And now AutoCAD is also able to run in the browser. So it's also a way of going for people here and there in the companies. There is also a huge thing called Electron. So the opposite, right? You are not putting desktop app into the browser, but you are putting browser into a desktop app. So this is how Electron works. And it is also in many solutions like VS Code, for instance. And then this JavaScript itself can help us also address these issues I've mentioned already. So the smart speaker stuff can be written with Node.js, why not? And then we have also other things like function as a service, serverless, all the backends things on AWS and other cloud providers can be also written with JavaScript. And I'm going to share a secret with you. There is serverless here. And behind serverless technology, there are servers. And even serverless framework itself has its server, written in JavaScript. So there is also a way of running JavaScript code on server. That's why I'm putting this on the top of this presentation. I'm starting with JavaScript because it's everywhere and it can be everywhere. We have runtime environments like Node.js, like Chromium, and we can easily use them to run our code on the server side. Node.js and Chromium together, we can treat it as one. This is the market leader. There is currently the long-term support version called version 16, let's say, called. There is also a huge focus on multi-threading in this newest development efforts for Node.js. And what can be funny, what is actually a real scenario is that JavaScript with this Chromium is used by SpaceX developers in their dashboards for steering the rockets and things like that. So all the interfaces are there used in the Chromium. Here is the link with the evidence. So there was an Ask Me Anything session with SpaceX developers on Reddit, and they claimed that they use Chromium indeed. Okay, so it's interesting looking at Chromium at Node.js. Node.js is like an extracted JavaScript engine from Google Chrome. Yeah, it was this V8 interpreter of JavaScript extracted. Then we have Chromium, which adds some additional things for HTML and CSS. And on top of Chromium, we have Google Chrome, but not only. Also Microsoft Edge using Chromium. We have other browsers like Opera and so on. So it's kind of funny because in my eyes, when I started developing in 2013, it was like we had plenty of different browsers with different behaviors, and we have a king called jQuery, which was used to run on all the browsers in the same way. And nowadays, it's kind of opposite. We have one single browser, and we have many different frameworks to choose from. I think the number is even bigger than the number of Pokemons, right? But Pokemon is a good analogy because not only they were evolving from one to another, but also there were top 3 Pokemons, and we can say in the fronted world, we also have top 3 contenders competing on the top. But if you remember Pokemons correctly, there was also the 4th one. So here it is. And up with this 4, not something different like Solid or something. There is also a page called, for instance, bestofjs.org, which checks some stats. What is the number of NPM downloads a week? What is the number of total number of GitHub stars, and so on. So GitHub stars tells you about how developers love the framework, and NPM is rather for telling you what is the actual production use, right? I would say this way. What's interesting here is Vue got divided into 2 things, because it's created something similar to what Angular created when introducing a new second version of Angular. They have forked, not even forked, they started a new repository, and it happened also for Vue. When it comes to total number of stars, Svelte is number 4, Preact is also catching up, Vue is still the leader, but the Vue version 2nd, and the 3rd version is closing this list. You can see, of course, more details under the link, but we can also try to find what are the most popular frameworks recently. Yeah, as I said, we treat these GitHub stars as some kind of trends for developers, what they are currently into. And at this page, we can also find what is the number of added stars, recently added stars. So in the latest 12 months, so in the late year, what frameworks were most were gaining their stars faster than others. So React is top 1 in the growing popularity, let's say. So this is something interesting. You can take a look at it. It's kind of like React, but it's not using virtual DOM. It's just have some hooks like API, which is used to all these hooks. Only hooks are validated and re-rendered, let's say, and DOM is pretty stable. There is no virtual DOM, as I said. Vue.js is also still in the 2nd version is still catching nice traffic, let's say. Svelte is also here, Angular, and once again Vue. So we have these top 3 Pokemons, and let's talk about them in the alphabetical order. So let's start with Angular once again to provide you some interesting details about the Angular itself. So in this year, in particular, it happened that the old version of Angular got killed. Let's say it's finally over for all of you to know. In my eyes, it is like a framework, the first serious JavaScript framework. Yeah, from my perspective, it was like that, and it is not a thing now. We have just Angular, not AngularJS. This is the old version, this Angular 1.8 or something. Now we have just this Angular without 1 as a major version. And when it comes to React, this is also interesting. There is a nice report introduced by ThoughtWorks. They are introducing each edition, I don't know, in 3 months or something. This is really interesting. They are catching up some technologies you should assess, you should try, you should take a look at. But apart from this, of putting these technologies you should consider, they also introduce a dedicated paragraph just to point out that something is wrong with the React community, that over and over again they try to create another state management solution. And I think, yeah, this is the biggest difference between Angular and React. Yeah, Angular is the batteries included framework, which has opinionated structure you need to follow, and React is just a library. And because of that, there are some problems. When I join a React project, I always have the same problem. Like, I see the structure like that. When it comes to state management, there is actions and component and reducers usually folder, and the whole code organization doesn't tell me much on what the app is doing. This is like general services, tests, components, reducers. This is like a general way of dividing your code by type, by component type, not by the features. Yeah, it could be like users, projects, I don't know, customers, couriers, and so on. But no, it's like components. And if you have some problem with users, you need to find it in services, in components. You need to look for it in all over the places. And React doesn't help it. React hooks is not helping here as well. Usually there is just another part of that. And by the way, I'm not the only person who is skeptical about hooks and about this code organization. Not recently, but at the beginning of this year, there was also an popular opinion, let's say, from one of the most famous React teachers that hooks are not exactly maybe the way to go. But this is happening on React. It's market leader. It's still the battle-tested solution handled by Facebook. So I'm just pointing out its problems, right? And when it comes to Vue, Vue is now rewritten in TypeScript. In the third version has also its new repository. There are some problems with moving from Vue 2 to Vue 3. It's kind of similar as it was with Angular and migration to Angular 2. It reminds me a bit these times, but I'm not as active observer of this as I was with Angular, but it seems from my perspective that it's kind of similar. Yeah, so I've talked through the top 3 frameworks, but we have also more of them, as I pointed out already. In fact, we have almost 2 million frameworks, libraries. The number comes from this web page, which analyzes the number of NPM packages. And what's interesting here, NPM, yeah, the red line is NPM. It was said at some point in time when Java was introduced or something that, yeah, Java has everything. So here is Java, yeah, the number of packages. When it comes to Python, yeah, you can also hear that it has everything. Butter is included. So Python is somewhere here, yeah. And JavaScript is like 2 million packages since the beginning of. There were also frameworks before, maybe not as big number, but still. In average, it's like 850 plus packages each day. So it's not like new day, new frameworks. It's like new day, 850 frameworks. Some frameworks are introduced. Some frameworks are removed. As I've shown with Angular, it's now deprecated, the original version. Same happened to Lerna. Lerna was also an important thing. I would say, from my understanding, at some point in time, Lerna was a synonym of monorepo. Yeah, and it also happened that because of the monorepo approach, we also have more and more packages because every single folder from the structure was introduced to NPM as a separate package. That was the monorepo about, basically. Yeah, but it's Lerna is now a dead project. We have other approaches for monorepos. This is what happens. What's also interesting, why this is so big, like frameworks daily. We not only have big frameworks like Angular, like React library, big solutions like Next.js or something. We also have, I would say, we mostly have micro frameworks. And here is my favorite example I'm sharing frequently, as much as I can. There is a package called isAuth. What this package does, there is just one exported function, and when you provide the argument to that function, it answers the question if it is the odd number. Yeah. So instead of writing one line of code, you can download npm package. And when you download this package, as you can see, it's not so uncommon. There is 400,000 developers each week which are doing this instead of writing a single line function. So by downloading this package, you also download its dependency. There is one crucial dependency to run this function. What is the dependency? Yes? The dependency actually here is number. Instead of, so in order to, if the number is odd, we need to answer the question if we have number, yeah? And instead of writing even half-line of code, you can download this package, and this is how 70 million developers each week do. So it can be funny now, but there was also a small package called leftpath in 2016. As the name tells, it was adding from the left side of the string, it was adding some white spaces, zeros. And at that point in time, it was possible to unpublish your packages from NPM. So leftpath was published, but it was unpublished because the developer, the maintainer, decided, let's say, angry at NPM. NPM removed one of his packages because some company wanted to have the same name, and the names are unique. Yeah, corporate asked NPM to remove, so they did this. So the developer removed his packages. What was the problem? The problem was leftpath was used by Babel. Babel was by React. React was in half of the internet, so half of the internet was broke because of the single leftpath dependency. It was 2016. We can say, well, too far away. NPM changed since then. It's much better now. By the way, the developer was blocked a bit. The package was again. So NPM made some hard decisions. Maybe it was needed, but it was hard, definitely. And when it comes to similar situations, it still happens. In 2019, there was a problem with PM2 package because it was using a external dependency, downloading it through the internet. Dependency was doing nothing. It was logging in the console or something like that. Why was like that? PM2 developers wanted to check how actually installed. So the optional dependency from the internet was hitting this web page, and because of the traffic on the web page, they were checking how often they are installed. Yeah, and it appeared that wasn't responsive for a couple of something. Free was returned, and the result was the half of the internet, another half of the internet was broken again. In 2000, we have other NPM packages which were overtaken by them. They were starting, so I can't do this anymore. I need some contributors. There was a nice contributor. I will take this over. He was taking this over and introducing a version. Was, for instance, Bitcoin miner, by the way, of doing, and it's also a password stealer for some cases, and so on and so forth. So this is like a never-ending story, and to point it out yet another time that it is unstable and or battle-tested frameworks is odd and its number. Here is the example from this year. So this year, beginning of this year, I think January, there was a problem with libraries, colors, and faker. So the author of the libraries, it's not possible anymore to unpublish from NPM, yeah? But how about publishing a new version which breaks the existing functionality and, for instance, prints in the console liberty and can flag. So this is what happened, and another half of the internet was experience. This is an interesting history of how I think, yeah, interesting, but maybe for the offline discussion later after my talk. So he and now not only NPM reacted, but also GitHub itself. So now it's getting like it's starting. It looks like the start of some kind of war. Open source developers and the tooling around open source, right? For a moment, this Marek developer was suspended even from GitHub. Yeah, he didn't use his GitHub account anymore. So yeah, that was one person, maybe I think. Yeah, he also had house at some point in time by accident. So he had some problems, but it's not the only problem. Yeah, there is more with open source and how to maintain it, how to properly manage it. To put you another, he is the author of Node.js, but at some point in time he resigned from. There is Node Foundation, which is taking over the responsibility, maintaining and so on, and he just decided he doesn't need to do anything. Yeah, but he decided, first of all, he had a speech like what I regret, 10 things I regret about Node.js, and then he introduced a new thing called Dino. You can find some talks on WarsawJS YouTube channel about Dino. There is another runtime environment for JavaScript, server-side JavaScript, in fact TypeScript. But yeah, as I said, he doesn't need to do anything. He decided, let's start a new project. And he wasn't suspended from GitHub or NPM, but what happened to him was, I think, even worse. So there were plenty of comments like, please explain, why do you do this? Unbelievable. Please close this project. Here you have a list of issues for Node.js. Just go there and fix them. So things like that, yeah? And why it happened, I'm not sure. I mean, this is an example of hate itself. Yeah? So when it comes to Dino, there is also a note about it inside the Stack Overflow survey, but in the category of other tools. So it's not catching enough attention. So that's why I'm referring in my personal front-end overview to Dino as much. But yeah, you can take a look at this, give it a try. It is a different approach. Yes, it's more like browser-like approach. There is no node modules, for instance. You can just import something from the internet and run it safely right now in the console. So okay, so are here and there, and I think that the good way of open source is what Facebook does. Yeah, also Vue.js. It helped. There is a big company baking the solution, but there are also like open collective initiatives which helps here. Yeah, this is a nice summary. So open source is the main, this is the comment from the pull request from the Marak, who was introducing the new version, destroying his old version of Colors and Faker. So yeah, open source is the main vein in the world of technology, and not supporting is one of the biggest. And yeah, I also wanted to point out that there are some risks with big companies handling source, like some biased opinions. So Google or Microsoft can have too much power with all the things they are taking. But we should just observe it, and for now we can easily enjoy the way all the tools bought by them are integrated together. Yeah. So here is the example of GitHub Copilot used inside the VS Code. In the online version, it's all integrated thanks to Microsoft owning all the pieces, and this is like that. Yeah, this is almost the last slide. Other trends which didn't fit to the previous conversation. We have more and more powerful tools understood and used fully by less and less developers. Maybe this is the natural way. On the other hand, we have other tools, new tools, which hides the complexity of the previous tools, React App, and so on. This is what happened in Java world a couple of years ago with Spring, for instance, Spring Boot, and so on. So maybe this is the natural way. Here are the examples: Webpack, NPM, Package.json. More and more is needed there. And when it comes to browsers themselves, they are closer and closer to the operating systems that to simple programs running your JavaScript or HTML. This is what happens in our world, and this is what happens with JavaScript. Here is the example of all the potential, let's say, features which can be introduced in the JavaScript, but squeezed together to fit into the one slide. So yeah, it's hard to reason on them, but they are not introduced all at once. It's not 2015 anymore. They are introduced in the iterative manner, so hopefully it won't be as bad. Here is the information about newsletter. If you like my style, you can subscribe to my newsletter, and I will send a report about JavaScript. Do this, and this is from me. When it comes to it was already announced, called WarsawJS. Use it. It gives you 20 PLN off. But if you are a user, you to order for minimum to 35 PLN, then 20. You need to order before the Sunday. Here. Thanks for your attention. Sorry for too long. I stopped watching for information. That's why.
Mateusz, do you take questions?
So I'm not taking.
Hi. So you mentioned that Lerna is being sunsetted or discontinued or not maintained. But from what I learned is that Lerna is no longer previous maintainer. Which is the parent company behind NX, a direct competitor of Lerna. So they're going to be interesting.
For the so this is on. You have some newest information. It was like in Lerna was to catch and almost me. So this is the information. They modified me that they are not maintained anymore. Changed since then. So yeah, I need to. Thanks.
Okay, do you want to check?
Yeah, my question is, do you have some predictions about no virtual DOM frameworks and like Solid and
Let's predicting that web components should catch the attention, but they didn't, so maybe I'm not a good in predicting things. But yeah, this is the current based on the data, yeah? So at event more attention is by the Solid framework. And this Solid, as I said, it's not using virtual DOM. So it looks kind of like Vue and React are into virtual DOM, I suppose. So this is the market leader. So this is still the leading approach. But we will see. Svelte has a compiler. It's not virtual DOM anymore. Solid is not having virtual DOM anymore. We will see what happens. I think there is a chance that it will be optimized. Maybe the Svelte-like approach is something interesting. But I'm in two minds about this. Yeah, I think there is a chance. Yeah, because when you think of this, the whole structure inside the memory, just to compare it and re-render just the crucial piece, maybe it's an overhead. Maybe it's better to immediately observe just the small pieces like with Solid. Yeah, so maybe even React will go toward this. Because Solid, as I said, is also having a similar syntax to React, but it is just observing, let's say, it hooks like things. So maybe even React will switch to that if it will find it faster. Yeah. So then it will be eventually finished on virtual DOM, but so far it's not. This is what I can say.
Thanks.
Hi, you mentioned jQuery at the beginning, and I'm wondering what you think about, let's say, jQuery success, and what about functional Lambda? Do you have some experience?
Yeah. So successor or not? Yeah, Lodash has a similar approach. Like it has a simple Lodash sign. Yeah, jQuery was having this $sign, but I won't call it a successor. Yeah, this is like a small library which does everything. jQuery was doing especially DOM manipulation, and most of its ideas was incorporated, let's say, into the browsers, into the JavaScript itself. Yeah, so we have all these iterative manner of modifying DOM elements. We have these query selectors. Even jQuery was starting using these query selectors with JavaScript in browsers. So jQuery was incorporated by the language, and I so Lodash is having plenty of instructions for like mapping the text mapping. Some of them are getting incorporated to the. So I would expect I'm not using Lodash anymore as much. Yeah? There are ways I use it. And when it comes to this, or I know I've seen this. I think currently it's better for programming. Still, I would expect script, especially we have find more candidates for so plenty of things even for functional programming language itself. Probably Lodash is the next on the line, Ramda next, but still, yeah, it's useful.
Much. Everyone that the scheduled speakers have 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And WarsawJS contest with at a 100 a 5 minute talk, so you can get 100. And we have some more news. Radio IT have news. Feel that out. And you can check the offices of WarsawJS in 2000. Here, including the information. You can find it on calendar WarsawJS.com. Welcome next. Strączyński. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, I've got this one. So. Yeah. So, hello everyone, I'm Łukasz and I will be talking today about building SEO-friendly neural structure. Before we begin, let me tell you a bit about myself. So I'm a front-end engineer at Glovo and organic content team. I think it's working mostly about like then I moved a bit towards different direction. I moved away from frameworks. I joined Oracle Maximizer. We were building A/B tests with Vanilla.js, and actually this was pretty interesting because we had to create our tests in a way that they will be compatible with every browser, like even old ones like Internet Explorer 10, 11, and so on. So that was pretty interesting, and yeah, that was really fun. Then I read about Vue.js somewhere, so I believe I saw some job offer, and that in the job offer it was like Vue.js, and I was like, what the hell is Vue.js? So I googled it, read the docs, and yeah, I'm a bit of enthusiast. Vue.js enthusiast right now, so yeah, this is it. Thank you. Okay, so let's get to the topic. As a first step, we'll describe an application that will be our base for structure modification and so on. So the requirement, like, so the app will be, the app that will be presented will be will show job offers from, imagine that we have an application for listing job offers in many different cities. The job offers can be grouped into categories and subcategories. When you don't select any category on a city level page, there will be highlighting, the job offers will be highlighted. And the app is available in different languages. And actually, for now, it is Polish and English, and more to be added in the future. So this is the requirements. So when it comes to the technical requirements, our app will be using server-side rendering. So we'll use Next.js, which is a framework for Vue for server-side rendering, or Next.js, whatever, like any framework that's using server-side rendering. For now, our language information are stored in cookies. Page is accessible on two domains, example.com and the www.example.com. And a bit of a technical information, our IDs in the system are like the integers for category and subcategory, job offer is UUID, and city code is always three uppercase letters. So this is the application that we'll be working on, and we'll be analyzing we'll be analyzing the URL structure here. So let's start with the page. You'll see like you're able to pick the city. When you pick the city, you will go to the city page, which will show you featured offers. You can select category. In here, you can, on the left side, you can see the example of the URL and the path. How is it defined currently? When you go to the category page, when you select the category, you go to the category page. Then you see the offers from this category. When you select the subcategory, then the offers are filtered, narrowed down. So this is how it looks like basically. And when you select an offer by clicking on the details button in the offer, you will see some description of the offer, the job title, company, tags. You can apply for the job. When you click apply on the job, some pop-up will appear. You can attach CV and send an offer and you can apply, and that's basically it. So this is as simple as that. So we always land on the job offer page, and that's it. We can go to job offer from city, category, and subcategory page. So this is our application. Let's see if there are some problems maybe with the URL structure here. So the first question is, take a look at those two URLs. And one of those is in Polish and one of those is in English. Imagine that you have like those pages opened on the different devices. Can you tell which one is in English and which one is in Polish? Well, you can simply guess. You can check right now if you guess correctly. That's basically, this is the first problem. We are missing the language in the URL. And why is it a problem? So when Google indexes your page, it tries to find the best match for the searcher. So for the person that searches for content. So if it can read the person's language from the browser settings, from the Google settings, and it will try to give the searcher page in his or her language. So this is important to indicate that, hey, this page is available in your language. You can do it in many different ways. So you can use a path segment. So you can indicate language in the path. You can use the top-level domain, or you can use subdomain. Like it's depending on your technical and system limitations. You can choose the best option that fits you. But it is recommended. Google actually recommends to show the language in the URL, and not store the information in cookie. The other thing is in many apps that I was working on, I saw that kind of URLs, like they are not too human readable, right? And what's the problem with this? Based on the context of the page, you can figure out where this URL will lead you, right? So it can be a job offer page because we know that this application is focused around searching for job offers. So this is we can guess it that this particular URL leads to the job offer page. Maybe in Warsaw because we have a city keyword and the WAR code. So this might stand for Warsaw, right? But we won't figure out from this ID what is the position. And actually, this is a job offer page, but not in Warsaw, but in Warka, and for a backender position. And if you are a front-ender, then you might not be interested in this, in clicking on this link, right? So the thing is that this URL is too technical, and we can't be sure what we find on the page. Remember that the words are always better than codes. This way, you include when you use full words instead of some random identifiers in the URL, you are actually adding keywords to your URL. So it makes your URL more descriptive, which Google's benefits. So this is important to have. And actually, when it comes to the J, we have one keyword already here, but this is a J letter, and this is not descriptive enough. It's basically not a keyword, so we cannot be sure what it stands for. So the Google also wants benefit that kind of keywords. And yeah, we also have too complex URL structure. And what does it mean? So we have excessive keywords here. Imagine that we have excessive keywords. So those keywords extend the length of the URL. They are adding some paths, some segments to the URLs to the URL. So we have before the actual page, before this this 45223, we have 5 path segments, folders, let's call them. So why is it bad? This is bad because it weakens our SEO value of this page. So the pages that are closer to the home will gain more SEO equity. Google will mark them as more important because they are the pages that have more path segments more path segments before the actual page might be marked as non-relevant. So whenever possible, try to shorten the URLs by trimming unnecessary parameters. And yeah, that's basically it. Remember also not to add too many keywords there because it's not a good practice. It's not the best practice in terms of SEO. It might not hurt you, but for sure it won't benefit. So yeah, this is important thing to remember. The other thing is that we have here untranslated keywords. As I mentioned before at the beginning, our page is available in 2 languages and more to be added in the future. So in here, we have imagine that we want to preserve those parameters here, right? So the city, category, and category. So for the English-speaking user, it's okay, it's understandable. For the Polish person, it might not be understandable because he or she might not know English and she might not know what those keywords mean. Imagine that we have actually the language in the URL, right? So, well, in English, it looks okay because we have EN, city, category, and so on. But the Polish versions, well, as I mentioned, might not be understandable. Imagine the reverse situation. We have keywords in Polish only, and that's it. So in Polish, the URL looks good. But in English, for the English-speaking person, it might be suspicious because he or she might not know what miasto is because, it's not easily translatable word. So you can't figure out what miasto might mean, basically. So the translated URLs, first of all, enhance user experience. Also, as I mentioned before, Google tries to match the URLs, tries to show the page the most relevant pages. in the results. So first of all, it will highlight the URLs, the pages that are in the searcher's language. So, so this is important. And actually, Google encourages to use the translated URLs in your web app whenever possible. And the other problem is that we are serving this this app from those two addresses. And in the eyes of Google, they are completely different addresses. So it is not a good way to serve the content, because it might cause you a duplicate content issues. So Google might flag your pages that they are serving the duplicate content, and you might not be sure which page will be actually indexed and which not. And it actually weakens the SEO value of your page. So it doesn't matter which one will you pick, just pick one and redirect from one to another. Of course, the duplicate content issues might be also handled by setting the proper indexation tags, no index tags, like robots tags, canonical tags, and so on. But yeah, also this is also worth to remember that this is important and worth doing. So let's see if we can solve those problems somehow. So this is we'll be basing our solution on this structure. So this is the first part. So I have examples in Vue and in React, so no, I will be changing them. So as I mentioned before, we have we are using some framework for server-side rendering, and actually we in Next.js, which is framework for Vue, there is this mechanism called file system routing, which basically transforms in Next.js. There is a similar feature. It transforms the file structure to the routes, but this is not a good way in terms of when you're doing when you're improving your URLs for SEO. It's better to define router manually. In Next, there is a way to do it, and yeah, I'll be showing you already the Vue router structure. So the declarative approach from the very beginning. So yeah, this is how our definitions look like. In React, it will look like this. So let's start with the first thing. Let's define the language parameters. So we would like to add to every route the language here at the very beginning. So this should be as simple as adding the language to every path at the beginning, right? But there is one thing to be done here, because when we add language to the city selection, we will lose our home page. And yeah, this is also good to add some home page to handle the root of your page, so the user won't see the blank screen. He or she can see some, I don't know, nice page. For example, like in this example, this is an example from the Vue Next.js framework. Right now, we are adding here a simple middleware that will detect user's language and redirect to the city selection screen. In a perfect scenario, it would be great to add here some fancy landing page which explains what the app is about, how to use it, and it will detect the user's language and so on. So yeah, this is something that will be the best, but for now it will be enough for us. So right now our structure looks like this. Let's use slugs instead of codes. So basically, what are slugs? I will explain in a sec. Right now, let's change all the codes IDs to slugs, so it will indicate that those params are in fact not identifiers anymore, but slugs. And yeah, So the slugs are basically a word in the URL that describes what you can find on the page. And the slugs should be translated. And the best, the Google recommends slugs to be lowercase. The words should be separated with a hyphen. So the slugs should be also descriptive and short, brief, and descriptive to explain what actually is on the page. So instead of the city code WAW, we'll have the full city name, the translated city name, Warsaw. The same goes for the category. Instead of ID, we'll see the full category name. The same goes for subcategory and the job offer. When it comes to job offer, we'll see the company name and the position name. And yeah, this is, so yeah, as I mentioned, we are just in the routing, we are just replacing the code with slugs. Yeah, the same goes here. And remember about a few things. We are in this example, we are assuming that we are ready for this change. We can fetch entities like cities, like job offers and so on by slugs. We are ready for this, but remember, you need to identify technical limitations of your system. It's not, sometimes it might not be simply possible to add the slugs instead of codes because, well, your system does not support this. And you will need to create some like huge time-consuming overrides and fixes, and yeah, this might not be worth it. So remember, it's fine to have slugs and IDs together. You can separate them with hyphen, with some other separator, but yeah, it's good to have slugs in like any form. In our example, as I mentioned, we are assuming that this is fine and we are ready for this. So yeah, this is the current state. So let's go further and remove the excessive keywords. So we would like to get rid of city, category, and subcategory keywords. We'll leave the J keyword for now as is. So let's remove those. And yeah, this is how it looks like. But as I mentioned before, we would like to have our keywords we would like to have SEO-friendly keywords. So we would like to have this keyword, the J keyword, to say offer. But as I mentioned, the keywords should be translated, right? So let's make this this keyword a dynamic parameter in our routing structure. So this should be as simple as that, right? So so remove the J and add the dynamic parameter here. But let's take a look at the current structure, and there is a problem here. So those two URLs are basically the same. When it comes to the routers, it doesn't matter if it's a Vue router or React router. They are working in a way that, in case of those conflicting URLs, only the first one will be matched. So whenever, even if you type the job offer URL, the subcategory URL will be matched, the subcategory route will be matched because it will be higher in the definition structure or other way around. So depending on which one has the priority, so is defined earlier, this one will be matched. And this is causing us a problem because we need to differentiate those URLs somehow. So to do this, we can use advanced matching patterns, which is supported in Vue router and React router, but only in version 5, because I know in version 6 it is not supported anymore. So yeah, so for now, let's assume we're using React router version 5 or Vue router, and yeah, and we can define the regex in the parentheses after the keyword. So basically, this will limit us this will help us to avoid conflicts for those two routes, right? So whenever the Vue router will see that at this place in the URL path is the offer or oferta, it will match this route instead of the subcategory route, and this is something that we want. The same thing, as I mentioned, we can do in the React router, but only version 5. And the syntax is basically the same because both are using the same library beneath. So in Next.js, there is also some extension of, like there is also a validate function in the component that you can validate your route before actually rendering the route. So in case this condition won't be matched, the page will return 404, which is the valid keyword, which is the valid status code, because with this page, so our Polish keyword oferta shouldn't occur in URL if we have English language in the URL, and the vice versa. So this is the small validation function that will help us to keep the URL structure safe. So actually, this feature can save you a lot of trouble if you know the languages that you have in your system, or if you know how those parameters will be structured, then yeah, you can assign those regexes to every parameter there is. And yeah, this is as simple, as updating the routing structure. So this is the last point, the last problem. So as I mentioned before, pick one domain, www or bare domain. Like pick one, redirect, use 301 redirect to indicate that this resource has been moved permanently, and that's it. Yeah, in Nux you can use the server middleware, which is basically Express middleware that will be executed, checked, and will redirect. If you are migrating the current project to the new routes, you should maintain the redirection from old routes to new routes and indicate and use 301 redirect to indicate that those have been moved permanently, and avoid chaining redirects. You should redirect your user in one go. Ideally, if this is not possible, try to keep it below 3. So this is an example how you can do it. So you can add the routes at the top, so they'll have bigger priority. You can use the advanced matching pattern to avoid conflict, and yeah, create some solution that will calculate the new route based on the old route. So to sum up, this is the new URL structure. As you can see, it's much more descriptive. You can actually read what is on the page from the URL itself. And yeah, this is a small summary. So proper URL structure matters for the SEO. It's not the only factor, but it is one of the many. Remember to keep URLs simple, descriptive, human, readable, localized, have your domain properly set. Remember about the redirection codes, and if you're interested in the subject, you can visit the developersgoogle.com/search to learn more, because I barely touched the surface of the topic. This is like much bigger topic. So, and yeah, as Mateusz mentioned, we have the Glovo has the promo code for you, WarsawJS 25. Yeah, 20 zloty for the order. For the minimum order value of 35 till Sunday. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Łukasz. Who have questions? Okay, excellent. We got time. We have the special mic.
Okay, I'm here for the first time, and I don't know why we speak English, but it's okay. You have mentioned many times URL, and also with the URL, I know that there is a hackers attack on the Glovo page, and there was your customers were misleaded that it was the dash Glovo. And if somebody enters this URL, the malicious code was installed on the mobile, and this steals the credential to the banks, for example. So do you think about how to protect your customers from such events? So this is in your programming, or maybe this is a question to other members of your team. I could imagine that probably Glovo should buy some URLs for different with different characters or different hyphens or underscores, etc., to avoid such situations. Thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to this, I'm not sure. Yeah, there might have been one situation, but yeah, that was already patched. I know that when it comes to the web app was not so popular some time ago. So there was not much pressure to like find vulnerabilities on the web app and fix them. But currently, this is like a priority, and that we have a security team actually actively monitoring our repositories and all the apps. And yeah, this shouldn't happen right now. So yeah, this is. But yeah, this is something that we've been working on for, and yeah, this is basically it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You had two keywords, oferta and offer.
Yeah.
What would be your approach if you would have more translations? And sub question, even the harder case, if keywords could be defined by your user.
So yeah, this is a good question.
Would you be building regex in the runtime?
So there is, it actually depends on the state of your system. For example, we have currently in Glovo we have, for example, our URLs looks like, for example, like the pl/Warszawa/restauracja, right? And we have underscore. We have an identifier after the slash, as I mentioned before. So, and this is actually coming from the backend. So those translations are set in admin panel by the users and so on. So it's difficult to answer the question, how would I approach it? Because this might not be a good answer for this particular case, but in some cases you have to, you can do it on the fly. You can add some checks when I showed, for example, I showed you the validate function provided by Next. You can utilize this. You can validate it using some kind of middlewares, some router hooks, and so on. So you can fetch the data before, for example. Of course, this might be heavy operation, and it might slow down the load of your web app, which is not also the best way, because it will also hurt your SEO performance, like Lighthouse and so on. So you need to find the proper balance. So yeah, you can fetch it, check it with the backend. Those translations, you can, for example, like in our system we have mixed approach. Some keywords are built during they are built during runtime. Some are validated when you open the page. Some keywords can be simply defined, and during build the regex is built. And this is like for the keywords that do not change very often. So that might be the approach. As I mentioned, that depends on the architecture of your system and the technical capabilities, and yeah.
Could you share with us what Glovo is using for translation? Just a quick question, thank you.
We are using Localize.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
So the question is, for the SEO purposes, should I replace slashes with hyphens using the dynamic matching?
Yes, you can.
but should I?
Should I? It depends. It depends on your. I know that everything depends on your on your requirements, but actually, the slashes indicate, like, when you're thinking about SEO, try to think about your page as a static page with folders and the document at the very end. So it should be logically grouped. So the slashes should logically group your content into directories, let's say. So for example, if you have, for example, as on Glovo we have restaurants. So when you can have restaurant slash. So this is a group of restaurants. So everything that is after those restaurants will indicate that, hey, this belongs to the restaurant category. And you should, you should have some separations with slashes, but you can use, hyphens to, maybe you shouldn't separate stuff with hyphens, use slashes, but the hyphens should be used for separation of IDs for the same entity or something. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I guess not.
And we have some more information to share about the next Confront.js. I've got your slides. Okay. Our next Confront.js front-end conference will be on March 24th, 2023 in Warsaw, Poland. And you can get the ticket here. For the early birds who get the ticket will also have the chance to decide who will be the speakers for this Confront.js meetup. So this is the link for the ticket. And pizza will be at 8:30. Now, let's welcome our third speaker. I need to find his name because he's Polish. Okay. So please welcome Robert Kawecki.
Hello, everyone. Right. To begin with, I'd like to say that the reports of my disappearance have been greatly exaggerated. So I'm here.
Why we have in English, this meetup? Okay. So there was a question why the meetup is in English. The answer is because the master of ceremonies is from China. Thank you.
That's good.
Okay. Good luck. Give a hand for Robert. No, not yet. Jest tym ja? Liza?
Dasz mi full screen tutaj?
Tak, full screen. Może, screen. Again, good luck. Sorry, guys. Give a hand for Robert.
All right. So as a starting remark, I'd like to thank my predecessors because I'm getting hungry now from all the Glovo promos. So, yeah, without further ado, I'm Robert, and I've been here for quite a few times, but the last 2 years have been demanding, let's say. So it's good to be back, guys. And the topic of today's talk is sessions versus tokens. And first, a quick poll. Who in their programming career has used the session mechanism to preserve some info about the user? Okay, sessions, team sessions. Okay, that's great. And who has used something called JSON Web Token, or JWT for short? Okay, well, that's nice. So this could be the first time that I'm seeing team tokens, even more numerous than team sessions. And this has been a contentious topic as of late. And I see articles popping up everywhere, especially on the Node.js Reddit. Oh, did you know there's a Node.js subreddit? So there you have it. So I'm seeing all kinds of articles, tutorials, and videos that show in varying degrees of detail how to use JSON Web Token for different kinds of purposes. And one of these is maintaining user login state. So basically, when you log in, and we're going to get to that, they function as something of a session. So before we dive in, here's some background info about me. I've been programming in Node.js for nearly a decade now, it looks like, so hooray. And I currently work for @Tonos as a senior developer. You might have guessed the position name. And before you ask, @Tonos, first of all, is one of the sponsors of today's fine gathering, but also it's a 360-degree it's a 360-degree marketplace for digital audio advertising. So whether you are a publisher, like a radio station owner, a audiobook publisher, or maybe if you own a podcast and you're looking to monetize your content, so basically insert ads and earn a lot of money, then we're your guys. But also, if you're an advertiser that's looking for a venue to present your ads, to basically you need airtime to present so that listeners can hear your ad, then we're also someone you could contact and basically pay us. So that's it. And as you can see, there's many parties involved in a transaction that's about ads. So you've got advertisers who provide the ads and basically pay money for playouts. There's publishers who own the radio stations, games, and all kinds of stuff, and they're different, right? They're two opposite sides. There's a marketplace, which is us in the middle, and this is going to be significant today because we're going to be talking a lot about authorization, or how these users differ from one another, and how their permissions are different in a complex business system. So there's also a fun note. We're currently hiring. So if you're looking for a job that involves a lot of backend, some front end as well, that's maybe your day. All right, so there comes a time in the life of every developer when you've created some basic routes in the backend using Express.js, Fastify, or basically go to town. Now you have a nice login screen with a big green inviting button that says log me in. But what now? You're probably looking for a way to persist some, first obviously to check the username, password, and whatever kind of authentication you may be using. But the end result should be that we keep the user logged in so they don't need to repeat this process at every step of the way, which would be ridiculous, frankly. This is 2022, right? But also, we need to make some assertions about the user, what they can and cannot do, and especially in terms of in enterprise systems, we would like to be able to show or hide or enable or disable some subsets of the system's total functionality. So you've got slightly different options for the system administrator or operators, and you've got different options as well for advertisers who, frankly, do different stuff than publishers. Like publishers have a listing of their radio stations or maybe the audiobooks and the revenue numbers for the month. But on the other hand, advertisers have the list of ads and how well their marketing campaigns are doing. So as we can see, even if we had some separate back offices for the two kinds of users, for the two classes of users, then you still need some ways to let the one in, but not the other way, not the other group of guys. So, so let's take a moment to think about authentication and authorization for a while. These two words sound similar, but just a quick reminder. So authentication in the context of user management, because there's different kinds of authentication, like in crypto systems, but here it's just about proving who you are. So basically providing some kind of secret credentials that only you and the service provider know, like a user password pair, or maybe it's a FIDO token or something like that. But the end result is that you have proven that you are who you claim to be. And the other point being authorization, which is controlling access to system resources. So basically, what usually happens is you authenticate once or not so often, and you authorize all the time. So the system is going to be basically looking at who you are and what you can do every step of the way. And this is depicted here. So you've got, let's see if I can make this disappear. Yeah, okay. So you've got a user whose first step with interacting with the system, obviously if this is a system that requires authentication, is providing some set of credentials like a user password pair. Then we have authentication logic. So the backend needs to establish that the password actually matches what's stored. And then you're provided with some kind of secret so that you don't have to send the user password all the time. So usually this secret in traditional web apps has been a session ID or some kind of cookie that you can then resend back. So this is step 2. You get something from the server. Here's a fun fact. If you're using HTTP basic auth, so the oldest way of authentication that's available on the web, and you really probably shouldn't be using that, there's only step 1. So at every request with HTTP basic auth, you're just sending the user and the password in a header. So it's actually pretty clunky today. For instance, there's no way to log out because the browsers typically don't provide that. But just keep this in mind. If you are using HTTP basic auth, you're stuck at step 1. So now that you've got a secret, such as a session ID, you are going to keep using it at every step of the way. So you do some stuff like, I don't know, list marketing campaigns, start a new marketing campaign, see how well you're doing monetary-wise, and so on. So so then you just keep interacting with the system, but you resend this secret. So this secret usually will be a cookie, and it should be a cookie. So every time somebody tells you that it should be a local storage or session storage or something else, just say no to that. Why? Because local storage is accessible from the front end, and if your front end does get compromised, for instance, by cross-site scripting, by reflected cross-site scripting, or by a plethora of different vulnerabilities that can happen on the front-end side, then your credentials, your secret, which can be a session ID but also JWT, can leak. So basically, there's only one right way to do sessions and client-side secrets, and is HTTP-only cookies served over TLS or SSL. So when you've got a cookie like that, the front end won't see it, but it doesn't matter because it still gets appended at step 3 and at step 4 automatically. So when you do requests to the web app, your browser just includes the header with the cookie, right? So now that we've gone through that and we know what the authorization steps, basically 3 and 4, and what precedes it, so authentication steps 1 and 2 are, let's take a look at what the secret actually can look like. So what you get after you have logged in could be a cookie with a session ID. Now, this looks like an opaque string, and for a good reason. It is an opaque string and doesn't tell you much. So who can tell me some property of the string that's easily visible? Like, what can you tell me about this mess here? All right, it's got 5 parts. It's yeah, it's a UUID. I'll add that it's UUID version 4. Yeah, that's correct. And what property do they have? Yeah, it's unique. And can I guess it in advance? It's not deterministic. Yeah, it's not deterministic. It's random and it's hard to guess. So, for instance, if there's a colleague here sitting with a laptop, hey, you're probably logged into Facebook or something else, right? And if I were to guess your current session ID that you got from Facebook, I would not be able to do it just from looking at you, checking what time of day it is, and so on. So, so this is hard to guess. It needs high entropy. So, for instance, for UID v4, this is 128 bits. So it's pretty secure from a cryptographic perspective. You cannot forge. You cannot easily forge it. You cannot guess it. So if you were to guess it, you could impersonate somebody, but you probably can't because it's so random, right? But still, as we've said, this is opaque, and it doesn't really tell us anything. So if we are using this for authorization, so for if-else decisions on the backend, we need some way of establishing, is this session, does this session belong to an advertiser? Is the system admin? Should they be able to do or nothing? Maybe some subset of the operations that our system allows, right? So every time we get a session ID, we need to resolve it using some kind of session database. And this might seem obvious to you, but we're going to look at some architectural diagrams later and wonder about some trade-offs of different architectural solutions. And we're going to see some advantages and drawbacks of this. So just keep this in mind. We need some kind of database. It might be memory, it might be a map in Node.js, it might be, I don't know, Redis, MongoDB or something, but it still needs to exist in some place, right? And option B is what you can see here. Who recognizes this screenshot from somewhere? All right, so this is the JWT debugger on jwt.io. It's a helpful little website that lets you debug JSON Web Tokens, so see what's inside. And don't worry if this seems too small. It is too small for now, but we're going to pick inside, so there's going to be a zoom in a while. But what matters is on the left, in the encoded portion, you can see the JSON Web Token. So it has three parts. The red one, which goes first, is the header, which is just some metadata about the token, so it's understandable to machines. Then there's the payload, which is the interesting part that we're going to look at right now. And there's some signature that makes it trusted. So it's cryptographically signed. So if you send it back to the client as a cookie, and then the client sends the JSON Web Token back, but having modified it, saying I am an admin equals true, then you can easily detect it because it's non-malleable. So this means that if any change in the payload will be detected and rejected by the server. So you can easily say this ticket, this JSON Web Token is authentic, or it's not authentic, it has been tampered with. So this means that if you see something like this going back to your server, you know that it is the server who has generated it. So these assertions, this user info, you know it to be true because you verified at each request. This actually does end up in the cookie, so you can see it in plain text if you decode the token. And what this means is you can safely say that this belongs to a subject or a person holding the JSON Web Token, who's Alex at adsexample.com, and his role in the system is an advertiser. So he should be able to perform advertisery things, whatever it is they do on the backend, right? There's also some timestamp fields which determine when it expires, and this is going to be an important point. So just remember that there's like sessions, they're not forever. It expires at some point in the future, and you might be able to hold on to a JSON Web Token, but not forever, but only for, I don't know, some minutes, some hours. It all depends on the expiration field. All right, so let's see how the two kinds of authorizations differ. The first one at the top is the user wielding a session ID that they have received from a login process. So when we authorize, we ask, is this user, for instance, an advertiser, because they're trying to start a new advertising campaign, they want some ads played on some radio. So based on the session ID, we need to go to some kind of session database where the details of the logged in user are stored. So we turn the ID into some set of claims about some assertions about the user, like they can do advertisery stuff, they're an advertiser, they should be able to access this area of the system. Sometimes even that's not enough, because if you aren't careful when developing your session middleware or your login process, you might not save this info in the session. So if you don't persist a flag that says this is an advertiser, you might still need a round trip to a database. So first you resolve the user ID based on session ID. So it goes session ID resolves to user ID, but then the user ID still needs to be resolved to this user's role or access level, permission level, etc. So you can see there's a bit of back and forth involved between the application, which is basically your Node.js process, and some database or even databases. This is a round trip, and obviously it does cost time. Also, you need to manage a database, so it costs you money. You probably need to pay for some, I don't know, license, seat, or a VM that's serving that, or I don't know, credits on AWS. But still, it's non-negligible, right? And then you have token-based authorization here at the bottom. And the difference is the user already wields a trusted token, and it already says everything that you need to know. So in your application, you can just take the token, having verified it, and have an if that says, if this is an advertiser, then yeah, just let the guy run some ads on our network, or just if this is a publisher, then they should be able to stop the transmission for radio and replace it with some music because it's undergoing maintenance. So there is no database involved here, and this seems like a huge boon to everyone suddenly. And this is also, I think, part of why the JWT popularity has been growing. So you just give the user a token, they use the token, and look, there's no database, no costs, the performance seems higher, right? So let's look at it let's look at the database request, which is the second arrow on the right, at top. This is a round trip, so it could take several handful of milliseconds, it could be slow, but it does happen. And where some see runtime costs, others see opportunity. And this query that happens actually needs to find a row or a record or maybe a document if it's MongoDB that's associated with the session ID. So it does a lookup by some key, by some index of the session. But the important thing is it actually has to do the lookup and find the record. So this is an opportunity if you are trying to, for instance, log the user out quickly or to lock them out of the system, to delete this record. And this can create something that's called a closed loop system, where if you delete a record from database, you immediately lock out all users of the record or of the credential out of the system. So in some circles, it might be necessary that you are able to actually flip the switch and break the circuit. The user is disconnected from now on from the system until they can re-authenticate. And this actually is important from a security incident response point of view, because closed loop systems are a thing. And in some industries, you might actually get a review question from security guys that come from some exotic countries that ask, is this a closed loop system? And you need to prove that. So this request, it does need to happen. And now that we've looked at some architectural stuff very broadly, let's consider some pros and cons of the two systems, of the two solutions that we've described. So instant validation, or the creation of a closed loop system for sessions, is a huge plus, right? But this comes at the cost of latency. So this database request that enables the discovery of expired sessions, of deleted sessions, which were forcibly terminated, comes at the cost of latency and some load for your infrastructure. So it costs you time and money, right? Then, as a plus for sessions, you have listability. So you can actually come into the system, have a user panel that says, how many times have I logged in today? Then you're in Warsaw, right? And you go and you see some users from, I don't know, Russia, and hey, that's not me, wait a second. So you have an opportunity to discover attackers and just catch them red-handed. So with JSON Web Tokens, there's no database, so there's no place to discover this kind of entry. It just doesn't exist. Sure, maybe there are server logs, but you're a user and you're not the server admin. So you have really no way to refer to fail to ban logs or something like that and just discover this for yourself. So there's no tool that you're given as a user or even a system operator to deal with any kind of suspicious activity that you're not sure about. However, in some distributed systems, which are composed of services in a service-oriented architecture, or maybe with a microservice kind of product, this creates a coupling to a central DB. So the DB needs to contain some kind of record, some kind of, I don't know, document. If it's MongoDB, it needs to have some kind of schema, some field names. And imagine if I told you today that there's a service running on Node.js that uses some express-session, and there's some guys trying to integrate with session DB, so they would like single sign-on, but they're using Java or PHP. And let's see how well that works out, right? So this is not a great situation to be in. And the thing is, the coupling that we've introduced can be unacceptable in some situations. So for some systems that you're developing, well, first of all, obviously you should consider whether you need microservices or not, but this is a whole different discussion. But when you have gone down this route, there's inherent coupling that you get with session DBs. So you might not be able to use sessions as they are. But last but not least, an advantage of using plain old sessions is there's a database record. So there's a natural tendency to put some extra data. So for instance, a shopping cart is a good example, or the last seen, last viewed screens, last viewed products, I don't know, your favorite stations in the session and so on. So you know, if you imagine how you would build a shopping cart without sessions or without some auxiliary state, it's not that obvious, right? I mean, we're going to get to that in a while, but it just doesn't offer you the default place to put everything in, which is session data. But this comes at a cost. So let me ask you a question. Has this ever happened to you? You're in a web store of any kind, you're buying some products, and you click add to cart, and then you click it again fast. And then you go to your cart to inspect how many products you've added. You want 2 of the item, but there's only 1 in there. So does this sound familiar? This is an example of a session race condition, because sessions, and this is not the main topic today, but we're still going to pay, I don't know, 15 seconds to it. So sessions work like this. They load your session state at the beginning of the request handler, then you're allowed to modify something in the session, and they write it back, replacing the previous session state. This is known as a read, modify, write loop, and this is like the most widespread generator of all kinds of race conditions. Right, you're cruising for race conditions. So just something to keep this in mind, and we're going to see about a fix in a moment. So first of all, we've mentioned some drawbacks regarding sessions, and those were purported to be poor performance. But did you know that you may be using sessions needlessly for some routes? Like, let's say you have an app, and this app involves some API, but also some images, some style sheets, and so on. And it is possible that if you're not careful when deploying your session middleware, like Express session, Festify session, etc., your session middleware might be loading the data and maybe even saving the data needlessly at every request. So try and identify some public resources like style sheets, or basically anything that you're not already hosting on a CDN but directly from your application, and just exempt it from the session mechanism. And there's one item that's often overlooked, and this is the Fev icon. The Fev icon is a performance killer in many ways, but sessions are one of them. Now, if your database is not up to par for storing sessions, just make it faster. So invest in a database that's less loaded. Maybe separate the session database from our main database, or maybe just make it Redis or Memcache, or maybe MongoDB, but it's it's not as fast as in-memory DB. Make it shardable, because we've seen that some the session IDs are actually pretty random. So it's easy to get a uniform distribution between shards, so you can scale it. Now, also stop storing app state in sessions. I know this seems easier said than done, but actually what you should be doing if you want to avoid race conditions, like I've told with the button, is store a reference. So you store a reference to a shopping cart, and then you model a shopping cart using some concurrency primitives like transactions. Yeah. All right, so here are some pros and cons of JSON Web Tokens, and we are nearing the end, don't worry. And okay, so there's no infrastructure, but also you cannot force a closed loop system. They are obvious to scale because you just scale the app, because it's the app that's processing the entirety of the token. There's no database, but it's harder to keep changing data, which you can do in local storage. And actually, this is what you might be able to do. So just use local storage for the client-side cart, and you should be fine. Also, discuss token expiry times, because using too long of a token can be dangerous, and using too short of a token may be annoying to your users. So there's also a technique called refresh tokens, and this is important because you might get two kinds of tokens. You get a longer-lived token that you can use to obtain a shorter-lived token, and then you just iterate. So every time you run out, the client needs to know, oh, I've run out of time, like I did just. But so I need to obtain a new access token. This works, but obviously you need a way to revoke refresh tokens. So then you build a database where you store the revoked refresh token IDs. And if you look at it, you have just reinvented sessions, maybe. So what if we could get best of both worlds? What if we could do access plus refresh tokens, but also maintain a database where we actually keep track of the issued refresh tokens and treat them like sessions. So we get a listing of the refresh tokens, and you have a revoke button that you can use. So obviously this is a non-zero time where you have no control. So for instance, let's say you've issued a 5-minute access token. The attackers are using it actively, but for these 5 minutes, your hands are tied. But after this, the client needs to hit up the refresh database, and this database says, sorry, but we're not serving you anymore. So this doesn't let you create a closed loop system, but you can approximate it with some time lag. So this is important to keep in mind, right? And no matter what you choose, you should be starting with some kind of domain model that actually lets you ask some questions, but not of the cookie. So you should not be referring to cookies or this with tokens themselves or to a database, but you should abstract away some methods that let you ask, is this an admin, is this an advertiser, and hide your implementation. So this lets you refactor later and start from the simplest solution. So you might be able to start with sessions, but progress to JWT or refresh tokens, etc. So this is a summary. Here are some rules of thumb. Sessions might be fine if you're just starting out. They probably are fine, to be honest. But if you're using JWT, let it be for a good reason. So for instance, if you think that you're going to be hitting the refresh token database quite rarely, so for instance, only for 0.01% of the requests, it's a very good idea to actually issue access tokens, use them excessively, and then just let the API refresh when it needs to. Maybe it won't need to, because maybe it's doing some kind of bulk operation that it just needs 5 minutes for, and by the time the refresh token has expired, the API client has done its job. So this is a great use case for JWTs. So also when using microservices or systems where there's some kind of federated identity, especially like OAuth, OpenID Connect, or so on, then you may be forced to use JWT, but also know what you're losing by this. So you cannot create a closed loop system. So this is important to know that you have sacrificed something by building a more complex system, actually. Also, invest in abstractions early, because it might come in useful later when you're growing. And also know how to cut off access. So know where the big red button is and how long from the moment you press it until it actually takes effect. So when do the bad guys stop interacting with your system? This is just note this number down and look at it every once in a while. It might surprise you. Okay, so here are some third-party solutions that you should be aware of. First is Keycloak, which is a federated identity platform. So basically, it offers single sign-on, single user account, but also, before you ask, all these are hybrids. So they actually give you access tokens, refresh tokens, but also they do emulate sessions. So no matter if you choose Keycloak, Auth0, or something called Super Tokens, which is developing rapidly, you're getting a hybrid. So just know that you are getting a refresh token. There's some lag time by the time the access token expires, and also there's gonna be a panel that lets you expire refresh tokens, so sessions, so-called here. But this is basically it. So know what you're buying. You're buying a hybrid solution, and maybe it could be simpler, and maybe you're served better by a plain old session system. I highly recommend reading the Super Tokens documentation, because they're pretty new, but their docs actually show you some helpful arrows and architectural diagrams. So if you're trying to learn about not how much it costs, but actually how it works under the hood, then Super Tokens is great, because they offer actual learning material in their marketing portfolio. So here are the closing remarks or the takeaways you're responsible for authorization. And even if you outsource authentication to a third-party provider, to, I don't know, federated identity or something, you're still responsible for authorizing, and you're still buying some kind of trade-off. Pick the right tool for the job. Maybe start with just sessions and don't get into the hype early. And actually talk to security or incident response people. If you don't have any dedicated security or incident response people, that might be you someday. So just think about what you are going to do when the bad guys get in. And here are some links. You're obviously going to get this presentation later. If you prefer long-form articles to read rather than listen to, that's a great article by AvertPod about why JWT and just using it blindly is a bad default. And also there's some links to the products and some tools that we mentioned earlier. So questions?
And questions? We got time for 3 questions. Oh, you can take the blue one.
Make it short.
Thanks. Question from me. Do you think the JWT is a good pick for standard SPA? Is there a response for that question? The simple one.
Right. So
because there is a lot of discussions about that, and it's not always.
So the answer is going to be short, and it's a no. Yeah. It isn't a good choice if you're just starting out, unless you have a compelling reason to do that. For instance, if you're using Firebase auth, then obviously you're going to use some form of token. But if at all possible, strive for sessions, because it's obvious how to, I don't know, make a user panel or how to log everyone out in case, you know, what happens with the fan. So yeah, if possible, just use the simplest thing out there.
Yeah, thank you. Really wonderful talk. I think this is one of the rare moments when I will say that you had too few slides, because your presentation was full of technical details. It might have been boring for you know, young adepts, but really it was wonderful talk. I have 2 questions. Okay. Okay.
At least it's not more of a comment, right?
Okay, so I will get rid of first question. Yeah. Second question. You have shown us JWT and code.io. It's not. This question is not referred to your talk. Yeah.
You
first question, which I'm skipping, is referred. But do you know, on the left-hand side we've got colored input,
yep.
And my question is, do you know how it's done? Have you reverse engineered that?
You mean the page?
Yeah, no, like this coloring that, you know, this is like text area, which is different color. It has different stylings for, you know, dot separated tokens.
Well, as you might have noticed, I'm more of a backend guy, so I barely know what a text area is.
Okay, thank you. But you really wonderful talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Robert, for this very interesting topic. I see there are no other questions, so I'm just gonna say we're going to have a break now, and after the break, we will have news to announce about the next WarsawJS meetup and also the lightning talk for the JetBrains license. And for the time being, please enjoy the pizzas over there.
Najbliższe jest tam po prawie. Na końcu nie da się dalej iść.
To jest sumologik.
Słucham?
Jest sumologik.
Nie.
Aha, jest to. Nie. O, to jest...
Przygiąłeś z sarkazmu, naprawdę. To jest takie pytanie, to... Jak to przygiąłem?
Jak się wyłącza?
Nie no, naprawdę.
So now we can take our seats, and our first lightning talk is ready. Please, everybody, take our seats. May I have your attention, people from the back? Okay, lightning talk will start soon. Good. Our first lightning talk speaker is Joanna from Evolution. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all there. Okay, my name is Joanna Rutkowska. I am a talent acquisition specialist from Evolution. I know that you probably don't really love recruiters, so I promise not to take a lot of time. To begin with, I would like to start with a quick contest. I will have 2 questions, and for 2 correct answers, I will have gifts, which will be sent very soon. So the first question is, in which year JavaScript was created? And please, oh, here I think that it was 94. Any other? Yeah, that's correct answer. So congratulations, the gift will go to you. Okay, great. And the next question, what is the first original name of JavaScript? Here again?
Mocha.
Yeah, you're right. Congratulations. So we have winners. After this talk, I will ask you to come to me and I will get your addresses. So yeah. Okay. Okay, and now I can go to my main topic, which is JS Hiring Week. First, a few words about Evolution. In Evolution, we create games like Casino Online, Poker Roulette, for example, and Monopoly Live. Currently, we are opening Engineering Cup in Warsaw. So we are looking for people who could join us. We are looking for JS developers. And that's why we are organizing JS Hiring Week and information which you can find on our landing page. It's not very popular in Poland, so I will tell you how it works. You can get a job offer and financial bonus, which is, like you can also see, 18,000 zloty. And it's very easy because our recruitment process is shorter than usually. It's only one technical interview and you will get feedback in 24 hours. So that's very quick and you can get a job and financial bonus. To more information, you can talk with me later. And I can tell you also more about Evolution if you would be interested. So here you can find how it works as well. Some information, requirements, of course, and salary ranges as well. Yeah, so I think that's all. Congratulations for the winners one more time, and thank you for your attention.
And next, we will have an announcement from Artur. Please welcome here.
Good evening, WarsawJS. So the last time I was here, I was my thoughts and ideas how to do visual reverse engineering. I'm coming back with few informations. Let me yes, so last time I have announced that I will be organizing few meetings where I will be explaining how you can do by yourself visual reverse engineering tool, and I want to share with you that our first meeting is done, and I would like to remind you that you can, if you haven't seen my talk, I highly encourage you to do that. And you can still join me on my meetings. So this is first thing which I would like to tell you. And second thing is I would like to find out whether are there any people who would be interested in participating in JavaScript Championship. So basically this would be, I think, first definitely in Poland, and I tried looking it up on the internet, but so far I couldn't find anything like JavaScript Championship. But basically, I would like to organize set of meetings where we would find out who's the best JavaScript programmer in Warsaw, and are there any people who would participate in that?
Will it be held in Octagon?
No. We will have, like, you know, maybe even piece of paper and a set of questions. Kto chciałby uczestniczyć w mistrzostwach JavaScript? Mamy? Brawo, 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 pięknie. Okej. Tak więc jeszcze raz zachęcam Was do zapisów i uwaga, poszerzam działalność. Teraz będę nie tylko wysyłał Wam informacje o nadchodzących spotkaniach, ale również pytania w wersji łatwa, trudna i łatwa, średnio trudna i mam nadzieję ekstremalnie trudna dla naprawdę wyjadaczy w temacie JavaScript. To tyle. Dziękuję bardzo. To wszystko. Miłego wieczoru.
Thank you very much. Next, let's welcome Ahmed.
Well. Over here. Yep. Okay. Test 1, 2, 3. Mordeczki. Hello everyone. Okay. So today I will be talking to you about my non-profit startup that I just launched 2 days ago. Yeah, I would like to show you that.
And again, Luisa, can you confirm that the streaming is there? Oh. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Does it work?
That's interesting. Okay, so hello again, and actually just as a quick introduction, I will play you a video which maybe can get the excitement up in the room, and then I will talk about it. Oh, there is no sound? That's pretty cool. Okay, so never mind about that.
You need to change output, I think.
I think I no need to worry about it for now. Okay, so what is the startup? The startup is called Volon, which is short for voluntariusz in Polish. And the idea came to me at the start of the pandemic that we had, when I noticed that many people actually required help. And many people were also willing to give it. So, for example, there were many people who wanted help with even simple stuff like getting their medicine or walking their pet. And also there were many young people or other who were willing to give out this help. And so I thought, why isn't there a centralized application where those two people can meet up? Because actually, during the pandemic, some Facebook groups came out, and people were just posting about some help requests, and some other people were wanting to help them. And at the same time, I wanted to learn the language, React Native, and I thought, what better way to learn than to actually create this project? And I think I just wanted to come here to tell you guys that if you have some idea about a startup and you would like to learn a language, I think it's a very cool way to do it. You should do by working and actually doing the project itself. So this is Volon, and maybe I can show you a little bit about it. So if you are someone who requires help, you can sign up and you can just create a help request. You can talk about what type of help you need, and you will publish this help request, and then a volunteer which is nearby you can open up the application and see that, oh, Mateusz, for example, 2 kilometers away, needs help with walking his pet. You will create a help request, Mateusz will get notified, and you two will be connected together, and you can actually help them. So that's the entire idea. I will not bore you more with the details, and that's all I wanted to share. So thank you, everyone.
So now our organizer, Piotr Ziętara, has something to say, an announcement. At the meantime, do we have any other lightning speakers?
Yeah.
Told you a couple times. During this time, we will be drawing 2 papers from the hat with our names and emails. Soon we will find out who are the winners for the entry to Prisma conference. Okay, who will be drawing this? Okay, so if someone put more than once your name, we will find this out later. So you can confess now. Okay, so who's gonna draw this? Okay. Yeah, you want to be, yes, perfect. Now the lucky hand of yes, you can pick 2 persons. two papers. 1, 2, great. You announce it.
Jan Kuszka, Cebulcz. And Kanye West. Okay, I think I know this guy. Ah! Very funny. Okay, thank you very much and congratulations. So guys, you will get the intros and yeah, and can you? Oh, all right. So my lightning talk, yeah. Okay, so.
Lightning talk. Let's welcome our organizer, Piotr Ziętara, for his lightning talk.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys very much. So as you know, there is also one more master of ceremonies in our house. I mean, usually he's here. Today he's not. Barry Salone is running something that is called Radio IT, and it's connecting arts, music, and technology. And today, it happens to be the 5th release of his podcast. So I just wanted to encourage you to have a look and listen to it, because it's supposed to contain music that can help you to focus while you're working. And generally, it's a very interesting set of new music that you most certainly haven't heard before. So if you like to listen to new music and have some quality time with it, then I just wanted to recommend Radio IT. Thank you.
So let's welcome our Marcin. Welcome him for the lightning talk.
Thank you, everybody. This will be fast. Okay. So I'm gonna have to Google something real quick. So just don't mind me. I have to just bring this up. Yeah, don't really look at my repo. It's really pretty horrible, but whatever, you know. We all have our secrets here. Let me go to my repositories. This is real fast here. Let me just go to Automate My Boring Job. Inside Automate My Boring Job, I have DuckTube. Okay, I'll show you that in a second. So, DuckTube, what is DuckTube? So, you know, people use websites like YouTube. People use websites like Reddit or Google search. And I was using these websites one day, a couple days ago, and I was getting just sort of frustrated because I kept saying the same sort of annoying things. Not just ads, but just really I don't care if it's an ad or not. It could just be a well-written article, but maybe it has a keyword in it. I find irritating, or I just don't care. I don't want to see another NFT post in Reddit or something else. So before you all fall asleep here, let me just real quick. So this is it. This is DuckTube. This is a really, like you can see 5 days ago. This is a Chrome plugin. You can go ahead and clone this on your computer. It's very simple. If you look at the script here, it's incredibly simple. Let's just open that up. Look at that simple. It's really ugly JavaScript. But basically what you have to focus on here is you've got a bunch of keywords. Those are the keywords that like stonk, keywords that you just don't want to know about. You don't care. You don't give a crap. So you run this little puppy every time you go to your website. It'll just simply hide those elements. You won't see them at all. Easy to use, fun to use. If you have any ideas to improve it, let me know after the talk. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
I got a question.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you got that one.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. How does it work exactly if you remove a video from your main page of YouTube? Does it get replaced with another video, or there's just a blank space?
Very good question. So because this is version 0.0001, what happens is that video is hidden. Hidden equals true is all that happens, which actually I like, because then you start to realize, wow, there's a lot of crap that I don't care about that's missing right now, which means mostly what is on YouTube is crap that I don't care about. And so that was an interesting realization. And I think this is like a dark underground, like the websites, startups, nobody wants you to know about this, but it's possible in a very hacky way to do this really quickly, to just hide whatever you want. You're in control, it's your computer. Just like, okay, the other thing I would like to do someday, Netflix, just show me how rotten on Rotten Tomato that movie is. Just show it to me in my face. I want to see it. Because I bet Netflix right now, the first pages would be rotten, 51%. You know, but I can't do that because I haven't built that yet. But that's the next thing I want to do. So sort of these little tiny annoying tools that maybe defeat some marketers, you know, life dreams of becoming a big star or something, or startups, unfortunately. But we gotta defend ourselves too, our attention, our time, everything else. So that's kind of the idea here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have some news about our next Confront JS. No, we said that. Okay. So our next WarsawJS meetup, number 94, will be on the 13th of July, 2022. And our speakers will be Michał Warta, Dimitri Smal, and one mysterious speaker from PackHelp. And tickets for WarsawJS meetup number 94 are available now on this link. So I hope to see you guys there. And any other questions? No? So that will be all for today's WarsawJS. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you.